Welcome to Fridays with Friends, the Friday episode of Unperfect, where I get to pick the brains of some amazing new and old friends here on the Unperfect podcast. And today I'm speaking with three people who are very near and dear to my heart. We have James and Susan Andrews, an amazing couple who, among other things, teach the marriage and newlyweds class at Biltmore Church here in the Asheville area. And last but absolutely not least, we have my husband, Mr. Art Sneed. Art is the President CEO of Ridgecrest Foundation, which oversees the ministries of Ridgecrest Conference Center, Camp Crestridge for Girls, and Camp Ridgecrest for Boys here in Western North Carolina. And today, we are diving very deep into the joys and the challenges we've experienced in our almost 30 years of marriage. Be prepared to laugh because we are going to do it a lot on this episode. So listen in. Welcome to the podcast, guys. I am so excited that y'all are here. I've been wanting to do this for a long time because we have been friends with you guys for so long. And even though we're very different, I feel like we have two things in common, if you don't count our competitiveness with game night. And that is our faith and the fact that I think marriage has ended up being a lot more complicated than we originally thought it would be. So before we get started, tell us a little bit about who you are, your family, whatever will help us, our listeners, get a better idea of who you are.
All right. I'm Susan, and I was a stay-home mom. I did various little things, little jobs, no career. And now I teach at a Bible study fellowship for women here in Asheville.
I'm James. Susan and I have been married 30 years next month. Mm-hmm. Close. We met at Wake Forest University, very first day of class, and I asked her out 3 years later. And we've been married for 30 years, dated for 5 years.
Broke up, dated again, broke up, dated again.
Nice.
Yeah. And we have two boys. And one is in Atlanta and one is in Charleston. And we have a dog named Willis, who you may hear throughout the audio.
Yes.
And he's a very sweet dog. So my listeners already know a little bit about you from me, but I didn't know if you wanted an opportunity to defend yourself or make some public disclaimers or anything you want to share that I haven't shared about you on the podcast.
I can't think of anything other than we're 50 episodes in and this is my first appearance. And so I think that says a lot. I think your listeners can read into that what they will.
Yeah, when this is all over, they're going to be
clamoring for more.
Clamoring for more. That's right. I hope you're ready for part 2. So I'm going to ask you some kind of fun questions here to get started. I would like to know, who is the most thoughtful gift giver of the two of you, or the two of us?
Susan.
Oh.
Susan is very good at finding something you like. If you come to my house and you say you like blue M&Ms, I promise the next time you come back, we'll have 7 bags of blue M&Ms. If you mention you like something and we're at a store, I've got to get it for so-and-so. And I don't even remember who so-and-so is. And we bought it just in case the next 6 months they show up at our house, we have them. So she's a very thoughtful gift giver.
I can testify to that. I get scented soap.
That's right. Exactly.
Yeah, scented soap for Art.
Because I mentioned that at one point when we visited early on. So I look forward to those. On our end, I would say that throughout the marriage, I've been the more thoughtful
100%
gift giver.
Agree with that.
But that you are closing ground on me the last few years.
Is that because you now send me the link to what you need or want? Does that have something to do with it?
That has helped tremendously.
Art is like you, Susan. I will just in passing in January mention something, and in December I get it for Christmas, and he can tell me the day before Christmas, and I won't remember that's something he wanted. So, not good on my part, but he's an amazing gift giver. Okay, finish this sentence. Our wedding was almost perfect until.
Mm-hmm.
The Daisy Festival.
Exactly.
Do tell.
It's exactly right. We got married outside Stone Mountain Park. I grew up in Stone Mountain. My church was right outside the gates. Never thought anything about it. And it turned out that I chose the weekend of the Daisy Festival, which brings in people from all over the place. The traffic was horrendous. People were so late. And for me, all I had ever wanted was a harpist in my wedding. I thought that was the most beautiful romantic sound. And that was one thing I was guaranteed I would get. And she was not only so late that she didn't play, she came in as I was approaching the aisle to go down and said, "I'm so sorry I'm late." And the veil was down and I just put the hand up and was like, no.
Oh my goodness.
No harpist.
I'm so sorry.
So we actually delayed our wedding.
Yeah.
I don't even remember what time the wedding was, but my dad did the wedding. He and I were sitting out in the playground waiting on everything. I'm like, hey, what, this thing's supposed to start like 5 minutes ago? Did she leave? I mean, what's going on? And so no, traffic is so bad that people are still filing in. So we were late
now.
On our wedding.
It's funny now.
Yeah.
Ha, ha.
All right, Art, you want to tell this one?
I think I have a very similar story to Susan, where I really just had one dream and one request. And it didn't happen. And 3 words, no sausage balls.
No.
Yes, that's what I wanted at the reception. That was my one request, and it did not happen. There was a conspiracy between my bride-to-be and mother-in-law and the caterer. And I have obviously moved on past it.
No,
I'm not
clearly
onto it or still
clearly.
Can you clarify for me, Art? Is it that you did not want sausage balls, or you wanted sausage balls and they did not appear?
No, I requested. I had 2 requests for our wedding, and one of them was sausage balls at the reception.
And the other was Shelley would show up.
Yeah. and he found out about it on the way to, like, we got married, we got in the car, we're on our way to Atlanta for our first night as husband and wife, and they had packed us up a basket of leftover food from the reception. He's like, just give me some sausage balls. I'm starving. I didn't get anything. And I was like, he was like, Shelley,
that's so
were there
funny.
Sausage balls at the wedding? So yeah, he's completely forgiven me, because I haven't heard him tell that story at all in the last 29 years, ever.
Oh, that's funny.
Good job, Art.
Yeah. All right, this is a fun one. What is the one thing you do that makes your spouse bonkers?
Just one is the problem right from the start. I can tell you that. I will say one of them is that there's always something on the counters. There's just pie. I think in piles, and I can't, if I don't see it, it doesn't exist. And so I have to have a pile for every thought and task for the day and task for next Tuesday. And they're usually on the counters or on the table. Right behind this computer, there are several piles already. So I know that drives them crazy. Sorry.
Okay. You agree with that, James?
No. I don't. No
Okay,
bonkers
we don't have to answer that. What's the one thing you do, James, that drives her nuts? In a bad way.
In a bad way, yeah.
Let me clarify.
Yes.
I'll say vacation scheduling. I have to have something to do most all the time. I'm trying to improve upon that, but I've been known to run the family ragged because, by golly, we're going to see everything we can because we're at wherever we are and we're not going to come back here. So we're going to go. And so the trip Nazi is what I've been labeled at times.
We spent a week at Disney. This is when the boys were smaller. And by Wednesday, the boys and I were in tears and we were begging, just let us sit by the pool, please. And so, that was his reaction.
Wow.
Okay. He's getting better. He's learning.
Good to know. I'll go next, Art, since I keep putting you on the spot. And same. I wish there was only one thing I did that drove Art bananas. He has had to put up with quite a bit because I am such a hot mess. I'm going to say, though, maybe the top 2 are arguing with him over stuff. He often says to my kids, your mom isn't always right, but she's always sure. So that is, I will argue to the death on something and then I'm totally wrong a lot of the times. The second one, which may be the first one, is running into our garage doors with my car.
And how many times has that been?
More than 1, 2, 3, or 4. Yes.
That's what I thought.
All right, Art. You can comment on those or you can tell your own.
Don't do it, Art.
No, I think I'm just going to admit my own, which I did not even know that I did for years, but my wife informed me and now my kids have told me. But when I am frustrated or starting to get angry, I bite my tongue on the right side of my mouth. And I'm not sure there's anything I can do that bothers Shelley more. Would you agree with that?
Correct.
Wow.
There you go.
Absolutely.
Self-inflicted pain, and it bothers you? I would think that would be okay.
I look at it as
it's a look like I'm
gotcha.
about to let loose, or
Oh.
I'm holding in, but I'm letting you see on my face.
Yes,
I'm
I
holding
hear
it.
that.
And in my mind, I am 100% just focused on Scripture, because in James it talks about controlling your tongue,
Oh my
and
God.
How you turned
by
that into
biting
a
it,
holy thing.
and that prevents me from saying what I'm thinking. And so some people don't appreciate
That's so
scriptural
funny.
basis.
I appreciate
You know
it.
what?
Whatever.
I cannot wait till the next time you do this, and I just
Yeah.
come give you a big old hug, which you also love, physical
Oh.
affection when you're angry, and say,
Yeah.
"Oh, you're so spiritual." This is going to be good.
Quote
I'll let
some
y'all know
scripture, please, Art.
how that turns out. All right. So, interestingly, that is my answer to the next question. How do you know when your spouse is in a bad mood? Like, I literally in my notes wrote the tongue thing. So that's
so
my
funny.
answer. What would you guys say? How do you know when your spouse is in a bad mood? We'll start with Art this time.
Yeah, what I wrote down was, honestly, it doesn't happen much. Like,
Mm.
Shelley is one of the more optimistic,
Aw,
positive people I know.
that's true.
And I would just say, when she is in a bad mood, she gets short with people and maybe a little bit grouchy, but it honestly does not happen very often.
A sweet thing to say.
I
wanna
was
say the
sure
same
you were
thing?
going to say about how I send you emails where I'm just throwing up all over you at work.
Oh, he just deletes those.
I am getting better about not sending those, but yeah.
Yep.
All right.
All right. I know
How
when
about-
James has had a bad day, because he comes in and his face just looks tight. He's not biting anything, but his face looks tight, and he'll immediately say something about something on the counter. And when he finally breaks on that, I know that the day has gone really badly, and so will the night. So, he's nodding. He's a great.
Foreshadowing.
Yes, very true.
Okay.
Very true. When Susan's in a bad mood, the whole world knows.
Oh.
Face, posture, hand movements, man, it's bad.
Tone of voice is the worst.
Tone of voice.
Yeah, that he hates that, and I know it, and I can't.
Susan is an emotional person, as I'm sure we will discuss in this. And I am not generally, so she makes up for my lack of emotion with great emotion.
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay.
Highs and lows.
All right. So, what was your first thought after meeting your spouse? Like after the first time you met your spouse?
I'll tell that. So we were at Wake Forest, and we were on a bus going to a camp for freshmen.
Mhm.
And she stuck her head out the window. I didn't know what she was doing, to say goodbye to her family. I grew up in a small town in North Carolina. She bonked her head and just let out this big old belly laugh. And as a country boy, I went, oh, mercy, that good looking of a girl with that kind of laugh. I got to get to know her. And 4 years later, I did. So
4 years later.
I wasn't a fast country boy, but I was a smart country boy. So.
Nice.
That's true. Yeah, he went
Very
for the slow
nice.
burn.
That's right.
Yeah.
I thought he was tall and he was cute and he was sweet when I first met him. But there was a time, this was probably 3 years later, when we were at Wake Forest and we passed on the quad and we just stopped to talk. And I mean, we had talked before. We were, I guess, acquaintances, but something in that conversation, I just was aware that he was a good person. And I remember thinking, this is a good Christian guy. And that was my first serious thought and consideration about him.
Very nice. Very nice. How about you, Art?
I think I thought two things. One, I thought she's beautiful.
Mhm.
And the second thing was, wow, she's talented. Because I think it was when I heard you sing,
Wow.
and just remember your voice and just thinking,
That's so sweet.
that's pretty amazing.
That's so sweet. Well, we the first time I remember us meeting, really, or me getting to know you, was at a weekend. The camps that we work at or have worked at did a retreat in the middle of the winter. And that's when I remember getting to know you. And I just thought you were funny. I loved your blue eyes. You were cute. I knew you were a believer. And apparently the word on the street is that I went back and told my roommate, I'm going to date this guy this summer at camp. So
Nice.
the rest, as they say, is history.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So we've been laughing about a lot of things that 30 years ago we were not laughing at.
Yes.
Right? Like,
That's true.
we've learned to laugh at some stuff that we were telling our son recently, or within the last few years. I remember we were just bantering about stuff, and he goes, I can't wait to get married so we can just diss on each other. And I was like, no, don't do that at the beginning.
No.
You can do that after 25 years, you've earned it, whatever, but don't do that at the beginning. But I just want to throw this out there, and there's a lot of things, there's a lot of answers this could be, so hopefully we all kind of have different ones, or maybe they're all the same. But what do you think has been the most challenging part of being married? Not necessarily married to this person, but, just the
institution.
The institution of marriage, yeah.
I think for us, two things come to mind. One, and Shelley, you've heard my mom say this over and over, but she says we're the two most different people that she's ever seen married. And so that's obviously brought some challenges. At the same time, as older I've gotten, I've realized I would not be married to someone just like me either. So, but the second thing that comes to mind is just kind of a natural focus on self. I was a single guy. I could go do what I wanted when I wanted. I could, pick up the phone and call you when we were to talk and all that. But I think just not realizing how much that changes and that it's not all about me. And I think I knew that, but I think it was just from habits and so ingrained over the years that's what I think made it one of the things that made it challenging. There were others, as you know, but I think that was one of them.
Yeah, and mine is very similar to that. Just that whole denying myself. Like, we are now one, and I didn't realize how selfish I was. I think that comes out when you get married. Like, you're like, whoa. I remember hearing when we were dating or engaged, you don't give 50%. It's not 50-50. You give 100% whether the other person gives anything or not. And that's been hard, like, for both of us. And again, like Art said, I've known this in my head. I've known this scripturally, but if I'm hurting him, I'm hurting us as a unit. And for the first time in your life, you finally have to start thinking that way. It used to be that whatever I did, I'm not affecting, I'm just affecting me, and now I'm affecting us as a unit. So I would say that. How about you guys?
Well, I'll chime in on the same. My answer was myself. I mean, the hardest thing in marriage was really me, and just trying to figure that out. We got married at 26. I'd been through med school. I, cooked on my own, cleaned on my own, did my laundry, whatever. I had that way I lived life, and it worked. And then you get married, and it was different. And why wouldn't you just do things the way I did them? And I mean, that's the simple start. But then as you go on, you realize, and I think the best I've heard it said is that Susan is a mirror to my selfishness. So that when I'm frustrated, 99% of the time I'm frustrated because she didn't do things the way I would have done them, or this is obvious to me. Why wouldn't you do this? And so if I can stop and think, well, maybe there's a second way, or even a better way. But that's hard. And so just being so headstrong and some way set in your ways, but also just not willing to look at yourself. And that was definitely, that's the hard part of marriage for me, is looking at me.
Yeah. I would have to agree. The hardest part is him. I'm just kidding. No, but just the fact that that he doesn't think like you, and he doesn't actually like sitting and watching a movie every Friday night. I thought he did. It turns out it was just because he was tired from mid school, and that was a way for him to get a nap, and I could be entertained. But now he wants to actually go out and do things, and I don't even know what to do with that. So it was adjustments like that. And you're right. It's all based on selfishness.
I love that phrase that you used, a mirror to my selfishness. I haven't heard that before. I know that we've both, as couples, been through I mean, we've been through some stuff, right? We've talked about it. I'm not going to air your dirty laundry out here on the podcast like I do Art and I sometimes. But suffice it to say, even though we're all four believers and we're committed to the marriage, there have been some times we either wondered, are we really going to make it? Is it worth it? Whatever the case may have been, you're welcome to share, examples or some of your story. But what I want to know is what made you stick it out?
I'll go first because his is kind of an interesting reflection of it. But for me, I would just have to play out the future, and I just kept reminding myself, where is it you think you're going to go? Where is it you think life is going to be easier, or that you're not going to be you, or that there's going to be some kind of perfect other person, or whatever it might be. Where are you going to live? What would your life be like? What would ministry be like? I knew that if I left, it could ruin whatever ministry he had. I was singing at the time in worship ministry. It would have affected that. And then, of course, when you have children, to look down the road and say, do I want to create an environment where they have to visit another house and have another mom and do all those things? I would do anything to avoid that. And then what helped me get through it was just the idea that I absolutely believed that God had a better idea for marriage than what we were making it. And so just knowing that that was not how he created it to be, gave me enough, I guess, energy or strength or tenacity to keep trying and to get help and to work through everything.
Mine's kind of the churchy answer, but I'll elaborate on it. And really it was, is God enough? And in the sense that in the depth of the valleys, and if everything did go poorly, did I truly believe that this God would walk me through the desert? Did I truly believe he would help me? Did I truly believe that in the midst of these struggles that he really was, because every day I would get up and say, Lord, I can't do this again. I mean, I'm tired of arguing. I'm tired of just not being able to communicate with my wife. And I need you today to get me through the day. And that he did. And that he did. And none of that was easy. And there's listeners out there that are in the desert and in the midst of that. I mean, I won't gloss over it at all. It was a long, long process.
Right.
And we're not talking weeks, we're talking years. And of just, wow, this is so hard. But is God enough to sustain me? Is God enough to give me the love I need? Is God enough to fill my cup and to just go one more day and to persevere today? And that's all I could ask for at those times. And obviously he is enough, and he was enough, and he sustained me, and he maintained me. And then we'll get to the beauty on the other side, but just how hard that was on a daily basis.
How about you, Art?
Yeah, I mean, the first word that came to mind for me was commitment that we made. But I think too, it was probably thinking about others, and not in any kind of positive, honorable way, but just someone who's been through that in my family. There's consequences, right? There's things that follow from that, and probably thinking more about the kids than you or than me even, which Susan, I think, alluded to a little bit. And just wanting to be different than how it was, for me and my family and my life. I think that's probably what did it.
Yeah. And I think too, because I think all of us at some point thought about the kids, right? But then you hear people all the time saying, or you hear stories of people that stay together for the kids, but their marriage doesn't get any, it's like, was that the best thing? So, so for me, I think kind of what James was saying, although I love the way you phrased it, is God enough? Like whether this works out or, works out the way I want it to or not, is God enough? But for me, it was, do I really believe God can do immeasurably more than all I can ask or imagine? Because, some of the problem was me. I've struggled with depression, and, we had several special needs kids and kids with trauma and lots of stuff like that were a lot of it that I wasn't handling well, processing well, but constantly reminding myself, my God is so much bigger than this. I love what you said too, Susan, about God had a better idea for marriage than this. It's interesting. I don't know about you guys, but I had this perception of what marriage was going to be like, and it's not been that way at all. In some ways it's been way more amazing, and in some ways, and I had I think a lot of it too, we look at our parents and what their relationship was like, and we think that's not a good thing, or we think that's it. I had two extroverted parents. I had expectations of my introverted husband that I had no business having of my introverted husband.
So let me add that I you can edit this if you'd like, but I think to say, hey, we stay together for the kids. I think then stay together. I mean, anything that keeps you together, then stay together,
But
and let
don't
God
be satisfied with just
no,
Oh,
and
okay.
let God do what
Yeah.
God can do. But
Okay.
every day I stay in the fight. I mean, what we see in our marital counseling is one checks out, and when one checks out, it really is an impossible battle at that point. It is there's nothing I can. If Susan just said I'm done, there's really nothing I can do. So anything that keeps you in the battle, in the ring, stay there, man. And if it's your kids, stay there. If it's your fear of failure, future,
Or shame,
then
or
whatever.
whatever.
As Susan says, as we're reaching out to the Lord, saying, hey, man, this can't be what you've asked of me and certainly of us. So, Lord, just one more day, just get me through the day, and let's do it. So I do personally believe in that. And I think the other thing from my story is that I had a Pollyanna life. I mean, everything was just perfect and fall in line. And then, you meet somebody, and to your question is, she was gorgeous. She loved Jesus. So how hard could this be? That was my take going in. And whoa, right? This was incredibly hard. And then again, it highlighted my selfishness. And I think the big picture is, as a believer, I'm called to know Christ and know him well. And marriage is a tiny part of that. And Susan showing me my selfishness, man, that's fuel to that fire of sanctification. And if my end goal is to be married, then I'm going to be unhappy. If my end goal is to know God better, then sadly, our struggles, man, you talk about the dark night of the soul and the wall and the desert. You want to know God well, then jump in there. And none of us sign up for that. But marriage got me to that point, again, much because of my selfishness. But my relationship with the Lord is dramatically different on the backside of that than it was on the front side of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. So let's talk about something positive. So no one checks out yet. No, seriously though, I love this question because I think it's so important. What is a strength of your spouse that maybe it took you a long time to appreciate? Like maybe you even saw this as a weakness before, or a lousy trait, and now you're like, thank God they have this trait. Art, you wanna lead on this one?
Yeah, I'll be happy to. I think for me, your undying optimism and patience with people. And it takes a lot for you to count someone out. And not that I ever thought that was a terrible trait to have. It just wasn't how I was wired. From a trust aspect, if trust is broken, it's just so easy for me to just kind of write that person off as that's kind of how they are, and okay, that's fine, but that's really changed that relationship, and it's just not going to be the same. And you have never been that way with our kids, with me, and with others. And I think I know I appreciate that more now than I did back then. I think there were times in the past where it just frustrated me because I was like, but seriously, can you not just? We got to move on. I mean, And, so that's what came to my mind.
Yeah. And there's probably several I could say about you too. I think one of the biggest things that is a strength of yours is just, I feel you are so wise. And I know you're going to be shaking your head and be like, oh no, not, but you're so wise. You take time to make decisions. You think these things through. And the reason that used to drive me crazy is because I'm so impulsive. So I'd be like, let's do this. And then you're like needing a week to process it. And I'm wanting to make the decision yesterday. And on the flip side now, I can look back and name times that you have saved us, like saved us from making a horrible decision, or saved us money, saved us heartache because, or the times that I have done it anyway. And, we've had to live with the consequences of me not listening to your advice. So yeah, impatient me did not like that at first, but now I'm so appreciative. I tell everyone we would be living in a box if we were up to my decision making skills. So
it'd be a fun box.
It would be a fun box.
And an optimistic, happy box.
A happy box.
And I'm breaking off our conversation right here, but please come back next Friday for the rest of our discussion. We're going to be talking about a lot of things, some of which are how we've learned to handle conflict and being intentional about growing in our love for each other, and even some thoughts on how biblical community can make a marriage so much better. As always, I'm praying that you are able to see glimpses of God's glory in the now and the not yet of your unperfect life this week. I'll see you next time.